I am your host, Nicole Will, and we're so happy you're here as we navigate the world with your aging loved one. We are here to come alongside older adults, family members, and the senior living community as we explore the world of aging and elder care with helpful resources, informative interviews, and approachable conversation. We get to do this together, so join us on our journey, and this is the Will Gather podcast. Resilience, that is the word that comes to mind for me when I think of our guest today, Kandis Draw. We know that our parents will need help at some point, but when that cancer diagnosis comes, it is abrupt and rocks our world and puts us in a role of caregiving before we even expected it to happen. Kandis was just 30 years old when she found herself in a full-time role of caring for her mother, and in addition to that, her younger siblings. Kandis shares about her caregiving challenges, her state of mind as she was caring for her mom and siblings, what life looked like for her, and also being in between jobs. A cancer diagnosis brings its own challenge that is very unexpected. Kandis shares what was most helpful to support her as a younger caregiver, her resilience, where she pulls her strength from, and how this has fueled her mission for advocacy, and how you begin to rebuild your life after you've walked this hard road. Kandis and I got to meet in person at the Care Colloquium. Here is her story, my interview with Kandis Draw. Kandis, welcome. I'm so glad we're sitting across from each other in person.
I know. The first thing I saw when I walked in was I said, oh my God, we are really taping this in person. It makes me feel like we're on the radio across from each other talking. Exactly. It's so great that we're not over Zoom. I just have to tell you.
I know. The human connection, it's powerful.
It is. And we needed it after being inside for 2 years.
We really did. We really did. We are podcasting live from the Care Colloquium in Virginia.
Yes.
How's it going for you?
Okay, today, let me just say the last 2 days have been incredibly rich, incredibly great. I loved the fact that Kimberly did this, a colloquium being like a meeting of the minds, that's really, really different than the typical conference setup. So it's been really, really good. I've really enjoyed my time so far.
I know, I have too. And I love how she used that term, the meeting of the minds. That's completely what it is. We're all coming together and we're meeting each other and we're sharing information. We're supporting each other. Has there been anything that's like really stood out for you that was like an aha moment?
Okay, so Amy Goyer's talk really, really, truly grabbed me, the keynote address. I really enjoyed her and, just talking with her. And also, I have to admit, we've been planning this for a while, so I was looking forward to talking to you too.
Me too. I know. It's been like on my calendar.
And, really, participating in those think tanks and having, people sit and talk about what they do and how they do it, and just collaborating has been really, really helpful. Yeah. It's been a lot of like serious networking in the care space.
Yeah. It's unlike something I've experienced before. I've been to conferences, but it seems so focused in terms of meeting and collaboration.
Yeah, it has. And really giving us time to, okay, we went to a think tank, let's do some collaborating, let's take some breaks in between. All of that is just really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think so too.
Absolutely.
Wow. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy we get to meet. And okay, so we're going to talk about some hard stuff, some good stuff. You were really young and you were kind of thrust into this role of caring for your family, specifically your mom. You were 30, right?
I was.
Yes.
Upon her diagnosis, yes.
Right. Like that's like at the cusp of when life we think of we're going to be taking off, right? And doing those things. Can you talk about what that moment was like for you when you heard that news and kind of what showed up for you at that time?
Okay, so if I can remember, I had just turned 30 that year, so that November she got her diagnosis. It was sudden, very unexpected, because that's usually how it is, right? With caregiving, sometimes you just get thrust into it, you don't anticipate it. It just happens. So really it was just a typical day and, after the holidays, and it was difficult for me to see, okay, well, life was normal 1 minute and now it ain't normal no more. So it wasn't easy. Things change and it takes a while to adapt to that change. With her, it was it went from hospital to, and I started thinking, am I going to move a room? What am I going to do? There were a lot of different, elements.
You had to take it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. And within that, just as your life's getting started, job, new work, and all of that, you were also caring for your siblings and working at the same time.
So I wasn't working. So what
Okay.
happened was not too long before, it was just I was laid off.
Okay.
So, but I was still looking for work.
Right.
But once that happened, all that ceased. The two
Yeah.
younger ones were there, and my mother, when she got ill, it's like it was me. Activities, homework, this, that. Coming to her, okay, I need a signature.
Yeah.
And then, I remember registering my little sister for high school. I remember all of that. Like, it's still vivid in my mind.
Oh, I'm sure. Because you were like, what am I doing? I've never done this before.
Never done this before.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah.
essentially you were caring for mom and caring for younger people at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
How did you manage that or not manage that?
Okay, so let's just be clear.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was managing all that great, I have to admit there was a lot of anger. Sometimes, as we've discussed here, you're not always close to the person that you are caring for. My mother and I didn't have a bad relationship. We didn't have the best either. So really, it was a learning and growing moment. Sometimes the person that you're caring for is not always nice to you. Had those moments where, we had some pretty rough times for a little bit. I think it's fair to say that a person that's dealing with a chronic illness, or something that's wrong, they have their bad days too. And, sometimes that can transfer over. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally. But my dad was there, he was still working, but a bulk of the work, really came from me. My mother, the sicker she got, she wasn't able to do much. So all the driving, all the errands, all the grocery shopping, the kids, all of that. It was me. And was that easy to manage? No. I remember being exhausted, like to the point where, and this is embarrassing, but to the point where sometimes I didn't even feel like bathing. Like it literally, mentally, I was just, some days just, I don't know how, you just don't know how you keep going.
Right.
But you have to. And essentially, I think you become numb.
And I think our bodies start to go on that autopilot. Foot gets out of bed. We keep moving forward. We just do it. You've got little people that were relying on you and your mom. Do you find that, actually, I want to talk about, were you a part of the panel or in that room when they were saying, we were talking about the complicated family dynamics?
We did. Yeah, I was.
Yes, I think I remember that.
Yeah.
And how it's so true because every family has their own dynamic and system. Mm-hmm. And I think we generalize, and when we talk about family caregiving and that, we want to be there and do all the things. And yet for a lot of us, our families are complicated. And so showing up
for whatever reason.
There can be a lot of different reasons. And that's where I think we have to have compassion for ourselves and for other people that are, it's going to look different for everybody.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's something to take into account. Hearing someone say, caregiving, it's so rewarding. It may be that way in the end when you're out of it and where you're looking. But I think when you're in the trenches of caregiving, it can be a rough experience.
Yeah.
And I know why a lot of people don't do it. Mm-hmm. Everyone's not built that way. I've realized that too. You meet a lot of people when you're in the care space. You meet a lot of people when you're out and about, and everybody's just not that person. Everybody just doesn't have it in them.
Yeah, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And
we do.
So while one person might be a good emotional support, someone might not have that be their natural gift, but they might be really good at balancing a checkbook or whatever the case may be. And so having those, looking at what we're able to do and what we're not able to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you find that you stepped into your strengths, and were you able to find support for maybe where you felt like you needed it in other people? Were they able to do that for you and help you?
So I have an older sister and who visited my brother at the time. He was in the Marines, so the government controls his life.
Yeah, he wasn't able to.
But I will say that when I needed, so if he was able to, he was able to help. You know, guys are problem solvers.
Right. They're like, I want
They're
a
problem
specific
solvers. They want the
problem.
specifics. They don't want anything else. How can I help? What can I do? All right, we solved that problem.
Yeah.
That's how they think.
Yeah.
So if I needed some, you know, he would, if as long as he was available stateside, he would help as much as he could. So I have to say that. The bulk of the care, yes, it was on me. It could be hard as a caregiver to see your life kind of go to the wayside. That was the hardest part about it for me. I just didn't anticipate being home as long as I was. I didn't anticipate, you know, this being stretched out over an 8-year period. I just didn't anticipate a lot of different things. So that aspect of it was hard. No, I think caregiving, as we all know, is a selfless act. You're a selfish person, it's not the life for you.
Right.
It's just not for you.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. I just have learned. And then, you know, rebuilding your life after caregiving, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
That's a whole nother podcast episode.
It really is. It really is. When you talk about the cancer diagnosis, the challenge is that it's so sudden and it's so unexpected, and it differs from aging parents or caregiving because we have somewhat of that foresight to know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
Mom and dad are getting older. There could be a little bit more element of preparation, but in your case and with cancer, it does not give us that time. What was most challenging about that for you?
Well, the cancer diagnosis, yes, it was very sudden. It was, well, first of all, it was a blessing for my mother to live longer than they originally thought. So when they diagnosed her, it already spread to a major organ. Okay, so let's just, you know, they didn't expect longer than a year. She did last 3.5, and I was grateful for that. I will say that I think that me helping, you know, extended her life a lot to where everything wasn't on her. But it was, my mother died fairly young. You know, she was in her early 60s, you know. But when death is imminent, you know, sometimes you can see it, sometimes you know. And like my mom, before she passed, she got this sudden, I don't know if you've heard about this, but they get this sudden energy.
Yes.
Where they're just, you know, and I'm thinking, she's better. And then the next minute, it just wasn't that, you know. But we had a pivotal moment towards the end of her life that really took away all my feelings of resentment and the upsetness. As a caregiver, the first thing you want to know is that, okay, do you even appreciate what I'm doing? Like, do you appreciate the fact that I'm still here? We're looking each other in the face. And this is not what I wanted. I know this is not, you know, when she told me that she was proud of me, when she told me she knew that this put my life on hold, when she told me that when she apologized for some things, that took a weight off.
Wow.
Because the reality is that that's all I wanted to hear.
Right.
So once I heard it, I was okay.
Yeah. You're good.
And I think that a lot of people don't get that opportunity to, you know, make their wrongs right.
Have the reconciliation.
Have the reconciliation that you're looking for, that you needed. But I was fortunate and blessed to have that.
I'm so glad you could experience that. And just her acknowledgement of you and knowing what you were doing and the recognition of that meant a lot.
It did. It did. So, you know, people, things were on bad terms. Not with us.
I know. And it gives, I think, people hope that even if it starts out challenging, you know, you said your dynamic was more complicated, but that you were able to come to a place to have some more peace.
Yes.
And that's encouraging, I think.
Yeah. And, you know, for people who are dealing with the same thing, it's critical that, you know, you give yourself time once you're out of that space to just really decompress from it.
You have undertaken a lot. And what is your advice, or what have you found that would help other caregivers maybe alleviate some of those challenges, if it's from what you've learned or from what you've found in your own learning of having to walk through it?
There are going to be many challenges. You're going to need community support. I found that to be one of the biggest things coming out of it, that community is where you heal. Community is where you gather yourself. And I was fortunate to have, a small group of friends that really helped me keep things in perspective, even told me when I was talking crazy, I didn't even realize I was. One friend that told me, she said, I used to just sleep with the phone on my face because I didn't know what you were going to be saying. I didn't know if you were coming crazy. And the thing is, some of the things they told me I said, I didn't even realize. I was like, I really did that?
Interesting.
Like, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I said, I'm so sorry. Like, I apologize. But to anyone who's caring for a loved one, I mean, I think it's fair. Like self-care books tell you to take care of yourself. That could be challenging. But you do need to take a time out. And if you have respite care available, you should use it. You should utilize it. If you have someone that's willing to help you, you need to let them. Okay. I saw this fault in myself where I did not allow myself sometimes to accept help.
Interesting.
It sucks, but that's sometimes how I was. And I was that way for a long time until I realized that it's truly okay. It's okay to say, hey, I'm drowning over here.
Yeah.
Know that it may not, if you need something done, it'll get done. If you delegate, it may not get done the way you want it to, but it'll get done. That's the key, right? Let go of some control.
That's
and
that's
just
such
realize.
Good advice. Yeah.
If people want to help, let them. Also, if you have support groups, you should join them. Caregivers feel bad because, I want to talk, but I don't want to feel like a burden to the people I'm around. And sometimes it's not always received well from those around you. Some people give you a bunch of advice. I don't like people that give advice but then don't do anything. That's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
I can't stand and never will.
Yeah.
But if you have those in your life that are encouraging you towards it and in it, then you should utilize it the best you can.
You had wonderful friends.
I did. I had a small group that really, really helped. And, if staying on the phone, listening, crazy, talking, that I had no idea what was happening in life. But yeah, I did. And if you don't have that, then it's critical that you utilize either therapy or a support group. Caregiver world, you can feel alone. Doesn't mean you are.
Right.
But you do have to reach out if you're
in those places. Yeah. And if for people, I love that you suggested that, because for people that might not have those friends already, I've seen friendships be created out of those support groups and out of the caregiver community, where they hang on to each other because they understand what we're all going through. And so that can be a lifeline for a listener that might be listening and feels like, I don't have that person I can call. Hopefully we can connect them with somebody that can be that person.
Yeah. And you can, realize that support groups are safe spaces. So if you're having, a screwed up day, or if something is happening, you can feel free to go and vent that to that particular group.
Right.
And it's not a judgmental space.
Yeah.
It's, hey, we're all hanging on by a thread here. Let's take the parachute and jump out together. Like,
Right.
one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And I witness people sharing so honestly and saying all of the things that we might, from the outside looking in, feel like we're crazy. But you're right. It is a place to be able to do that. And for you, when I think of you, I think of resiliency, because you've walked through really hard things, but you come back and you're doing so much good work now, and we're going to talk about that. But where did you find that strength from? Is that something you had inside you, or maybe it always wasn't present and it was a muscle you exercised?
No, I think that's a good question. I wasn't sure. Okay, so when my mother died, but caregiving still happened after that because they were still so young. So I was caregiving by the stretch of almost 10 years.
Wow.
So if we're talking all of my 30s, almost till about 37,
Wow.
38. Well, 8 years have gone by, and you don't have any work experience other than the job you had when you were, I felt really, I have to say, internally tormented because trying to work after, trying to get back in the workspace after you've done caregiving. Okay, how do I do this and I don't look like a loser? Having to, some of the tough moments were sitting at a coffee shop all day for weeks at a time, applying for jobs because I didn't know what else to do. Trying to even ask people, how do you put on a resume? Like, I haven't worked. They're going to see this gap. What do I say that's going to make it look like I wasn't sitting on my ass for, an 8-year period?
Yeah.
They're like, and it was tough mentally to have to go to interview after interview, getting rejection after rejection, but then seeing people's faces. Oh, you took care of a loved one. That's great. We're going to go with someone else. Oh, that's nice. That can screw you up mentally.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I had some days where I just was like, I have no clue what to do. I don't know what are we going to do here? I don't know if I had it in me, but I just know I kept going and I really kept trying. And I didn't know how to rebuild my life other than start volunteering. I'm like, okay, I don't have work experience. Where can I go? Where can I volunteer? That's where I started. I started volunteering. I started looking things up. Okay, where can I go? Where can I sit at somebody's table? Where can I do this? And that's how it started. And then I had to start from the bottom and come all the way back, to try to rebuild a life for myself, because there is a life after caregiving. It can just be really hard to navigate it after you've spent so many years, and sometimes you don't know where to start. And resiliency with me, I guess I took what happened and I turned it around and made it work for me. I didn't really know what to do other than say I was a caregiver. Then I started looking up caregiver things, and then I started being interviewed. Then I started doing that. So it really, I want to say, helped once I made it work for me.
Right. Yeah. And you made it, I think, to your mission where you wanted to then share with other caregivers and share your story and how to find support. It brought you, I believe, into action, like you said, with the volunteering and wanting to rebuild. Tell us what you're up to. You've got some advocacy work and you're doing some really great things, and I want to hear all about it.
So we'll say two things. Okay, my day job, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, whatever we want to call it, is I work for the HAP Foundation. So we focus our work around education, advocacy, research for end-of-life issues. That's hospice, palliative, that's grief, that's loss, that's pediatric illnesses, that's all the serious illness space.
Yeah.
I do give community presentations, community talks I service predominantly African-American side of the city in Chicago, educating us on, end-of-life issues.
Yeah.
That's first, we'll call that the first shift.
Which
second,
is also incredibly
powerful. The second shift could be, advocacy, because that's another thing I just started doing because I didn't have job experience, didn't know what to do. So I just started asking questions. And then, I started getting involved with the Illinois chapter of the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition. I started there, and I just started volunteering for run walks. that's all I started doing. Then I learned about national advocacy work. My very first interview was with Cancer Wellness Magazine in Chicago.
Wow.
The very first. I ended up meeting the editor-in-chief at an event, and we started talking, and then she set me up with her assistant editor at the time, and then that's how I got the first interview. And then I learned about national advocacy work, and National Variant Research Alliance started. And then I met a lot of other people in the cancer space, and then I went to D.C. to talk to Senate and legislative, House leaders. So this is all, but this was all over time, but it came from what happened. So then I started being on blogs, and I started being interviewed by great people like Nicole.
Yay, I'm so glad you're here.
And, that just, it opened up a whole nother world for me that I never knew existed. I just tried to see, okay, what do I have experience in? All right, let's see if I can get a job. Let's see if I can make it work for me. Let's see if this will work.
Yes. And the ovarian cancer is what your mom was diagnosed with, so there's that personal connection there too.
And then just navigating, gynecological cancers in general, and trying to figure out, what the diagnosis rates, the disparities around it for Black women. And meeting people in that space, hearing personal stories where, that some like mind-blowing personal stories, like, well, they say you think you got problems till you hear somebody else.
Then you're like, oh.
I heard some, so I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Like, this is serious here. So it's been a good journey. It's been something that I'm continuing, which I'm happy about.
It's just the beginning.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I was recently nominated to the State Commission on Gynecological Cancers, which was pretty amazing.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, through the governor's office. And I really... looking forward to that. I think the one thing we learned here at Care Colloquium was, you got to get things done at a national level. We're talking about lasting change, national level to change laws, to change policy.
Right.
That way.
Yeah. Well, it's because of your bravery in talking about it, but also on a personal level to think about going and pursuing the volunteer work. And then it's so uncomfortable to put yourself in new situations, but to then speak and then be an advocate for people. So I hope you are celebrating your wins and taking the time to do that, because that's so important. And that'll fuel you for what you do next, because I know it's going to be big.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Well, I am so glad that we're talking. You just don't know how happy I am that I actually am behind a microphone instead of Zoom.
Yay, I know.
I keep saying that, but I am glad.
Me too. I know, because we had like a phone call a while ago on Zoom.
On Zoom. And I'm like, I am Zoom and Microsoft Teams out. If I never saw it again, I'm okay with that. But like,
exactly.
It's been really good. So when you said you're going to be here, we could record live. I was like, this is great.
Let's do it. We finally get to do it. Oh, well, I'm so glad it worked. And I'm just excited to continue our relationship and to be able to be in touch with what you continue to do and how I can support you.
Because I really like the space that you have too in the podcasting world. I really like podcasts in general. I've become obsessed. You should see
your list.
My list of podcasts. It's unreal.
Oh my gosh. We're going to have to
swap.
We're going to have to swap.
Oh,
favorites.
It's serious. I'm like, okay, did I listen to this one today? I'm really on this life.
Oh God. Me too. In my car, when I'm falling asleep. It's like the best medium for me to consume information, but also be entertained,
Same here.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to share one of your favorite podcasts that you like?
Okay. Oh man.
Is it hard to? I know it's hard to narrow it down. I have a couple.
Hard.
Yeah.
I have so many. Okay, so I would say that Hidden Brain.
Oh, I've heard of that one. Is it NPR that does that?
It's pretty incredible.
Yes.
I started listening to Hidden Brain, and that one has really, really helped. I mean, from all the topics, you see all these crazy stuff.
So good.
I listened to an episode of Hidden Brain about the power of tiny interactions. like we're doing here.
Yeah.
The two, the one-on-one collaborations that people are doing, and this podcast has really, really, helped me. And then, I got another one, but you said one.
Oh, you can go. We're not on a
okay,
time
one
limit.
more. Okay. Introverted Black Girl podcast is another one that I'm loving.
Really
and
good.
Then Therapy for Black Girls is another one. Black Girl Flow podcast is another one. Bump in the Road is another one, and I could go on, so you need to make me stop. You need to make me stop now.
Thank you. Okay, I'm like taking mental notes.
Yes.
Mental notes.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and just for our listeners that might be searching, that want to know what's out there, because I think we got to share the good stuff with people around us.
I mean, and I'm one for audiobooks too. So I love to read. So when Audible came out, and then I found out, the authors are reading. I'm telling you. That's how I got through COVID, because I was listening to audiobooks, and that's how I read Michelle Obama's memoir.
So good.
I listened to, because in Audible, they're reading their books. So I got through her memoir. I got through President Obama's memoir, The Promised Land. I downloaded this. I need to put this on the list. I'm telling you, I read Viola Davis's one, which was incredible.
Wow.
So I love to read.
Yes.
So it really... Reading a podcast, that's my thing.
I know. You can tell you love to learn. And that's what it comes down to. Yeah.
Is that what the obsession is?
I think it is. I think we just want to soak it all in. I listened to Elizabeth Gilbert's audiobook, Big Magic.
I've heard. Yeah,
I've
heard.
My word, life-changing. I've listened to it like 3 times. And I think the space that you're in right now, in terms of like discovering and what your gifts are and how you want to go out into the world, this will inspire you, because it lets you evaluate that. Kind of the message is that like ideas find us. Big ideas find us. But if we don't act on it, that idea is going to go find somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to be quick thinking with these ideas.
I know we
but
do.
I love it though.
I do. So that's a good one. And I love when the author, like you said, reads it, because then you're like, I feel like we're talking.
Monotone voice.
Yeah.
Today on Audible. I can't stand
it.
Today in chapter 1.
No, I can't. I know there's certain even podcasts I'll listen to where I won't continue listening if I don't like their voice.
Yeah, it's like I can't handle it.
I know. Like,
I'm like, what's this? Oh, okay. Well, let's go to the next that's on the list.
Exactly. Oh, you are a delight, and I'm so happy we're in person. Thank you for doing this with me.
Yes.
So much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on these really cool microphones.
Yeah, I know. I just got these
are super
branded. Cool. We're fancy now.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.